I've never seen the film, but by all accounts it was terrible. However, I have seen the house that it built, and it's terrific. So said Sir Michael Caine on Jaws: The Revenge, and with it, we got a sentence that summed up acting as a job more so than ever. Sometimes you've just got to pay the bills, and not all of your roles are going to be Oscar-worthy, and sometimes, more often than we'd like to admit in fact, amazing actors will appear in bad movies. However, that doesn't mean that the actors themselves will be bad in these movies, as the entrants on this list prove that while you might have been given a terrible script, be working with the likes of, I don't know, Adam Sandler, or even be directed by an absolute carrot, you don't have to sink into the swamp with the rest of the production. So with this in mind, I'm Jules, this is Whatculture.com, and these are 10 great performances that are lost in unwatchable movies. Number 10. Stephen Williams' Jason Goes to Hell: The Final Friday. In Jason Goes to Hell, the Crystal Lake slasher is blown to bits during the opening credits, and exists from then onward as a body-swapping spirit. In short, it is a weird film. In fact, many state that it's only redeemed by the appearance of Stephen Williams as the kooky bounty hunter Creighton Duke. Hot on the trail of Jason, Duke takes to town in style, bedecked in a Stetson and breaking fingers as he goes. Now, in a good version of this film, the final showdown would have been between this off-the-wall hunter and the absolute unit that is Jason. But alas, this is not a good movie, and as such, the bounty hunter is wasted in a paltry handful of scenes, spending most of his time in jail before being dispatched with a, well, I guess it looks like a hug from a resurrected Jason. And it's an absolute shame. Number 9. Michael Park's Tusk. The first movie in Kevin Smith's rip-on horror comedies is a pure piss take on human centipede-esque films which sees a man turned into a walrus, and it is, well, it's definitely something. However, amidst all of this lunacy, Michael Parks delivers a dignified, genuinely chilling performance as the lonely old coot Howard, who drugs podcaster Wallace's tea and repurposes the bones in his legs into tusks. The film is worth it for Parks' monologues alone, especially the one where he's trying not to laugh when Wallace's first limb goes missing. Now, to be clear, this is a bad film, almost on purpose, but not quite, and audiences have rallied against the merit of this piece for months. Still, Parks does a fantastic job of providing the film's few memorable parts for the right reasons. Number 8. Samuel L. Jackson, The Spirit. Riding high on the success of Sin City, Lionsgate Cinema gave the film's creator and co-director Frank Miller the reins to The Spirit, which ended up being very similar in terms of visual style and tone. However, without Robert Rodriguez at the helm, it didn't fare nearly as well creatively, nor with the public. However, there is one redeeming feature, and that is the acting legend that is Samuel L. Jackson, who is no stranger to redeeming terrible, terrible movies, and here he plays the villainous octopus. And how does he manage to rise above the rest of this film? Well, by absolutely devouring the scenery, of course, giving us the now immortal line of "Toilets are always funny" as he bludgeons the spirit with one. It's a shame, therefore, that his acting couldn't save the film itself from ending up in the loo, but you know what? He tried his best. Number 7. Tommy Wiseau, The Room. Like nothing else on this list, The Room epitomizes the word unwatchable, and yet somehow is very, very watchable because of how utterly bizarre it is. And that's all down to the vision of one man, Tommy Wiseau, who has managed to build a cult following around him for basically being a bad actor with a ton of confidence that his product is actually good. As such, there's a real sense of magnetism to the movie, being so bad it's good and laughable all the way through. We all know the quotes, we all know the ridiculous scenes, and we all know that that is why it has endured way longer than it should have. Bless you, The Room, you're one of a kind. Number 6. Christopher Reeve, Superman 3. "You'll believe a man can fly" was the tagline for Richard Donner's classic Superman adaptation, and for a whole 2 movies, audiences truly did, falling in love with a page-perfect Superman, Lois Lane, and a dastardly Lex Luthor. And then came the sequels. Drained of budget and inspiration, the Superman series became a tragic parody of its earlier self, saddled with ridiculous stories, stupid villains, and rather wonky effects. And yet, throughout it all, Christopher Reeve remained the face of dignity and the epitome of Superman. Even in the worst of sequels, Reeve gave it his all, and becomes the shining light in a whole lot of stinky shit. Number 5. Nicolas Cage, The Wicker Man. Now, I know what you're thinking. Surely you can't be defending Cage's performance in easily the most laughable film of recent memory, and true, I am stretching the definition of the word great when it comes to his acting in this dire project, but you know what? He is definitely, most definitely the best thing about this version of The Wicker Man, and it's all down to his nouveau shamanic method. What is that, you ask? Well, that's the name that Cage has given to his acting style, accounting for the bizarre meltdowns and blow-ups that we've seen in the past, and arguably it's what makes his movies so memorable. The Wicker Man is a terrible, terrible movie, but thanks to Nicolas Cage, it remains strangely hypnotic, and while it's like watching an absolute fever dream, it does capture the insanity of what's going on at the heart of this film. And that is the only praise I will ever give this version of The Wicker Man, ever. Number 4, Tim Curry, It. Surely not, you exclaim, outraged. It is a horror classic! Except, let's be honest now, we all remember this as being much better than it actually is, because this TV movie was so long, and outside of its truly brilliant moments, it was utterly wank. And what were those brilliant moments? Well, anything that contained Tim Curry's Pennywise, of course. As the grinning, sinister clown, Curry delivers one of the greatest horror performances of all time, elevating it from dull TV schlock to horror classic in the minds of many. However, if you take Curry out of the picture, then what you have is a pretty dire film. Number 3, Christopher Walkin, Click. Christopher Walkin is no stranger to odd casting choices, but none felt so odd as his role in the rather disastrous Adam Sandler excuse for him to get his mates together and earn an easy payday that was Click. Here, Walkin plays the weird Morty, who gives Sandler's Michael the magic remote control, which becomes the central focus of the film. In a bad movie packed with a surprising amount of good actors, Walkin stands out as the only one who is actually trying to be a character. True, his lines are pretty silly and his motivations are like something a child would come up with, but he's actually playing a role and not just doing that weird nasal yelling that Sandler seems to love so much, and as such is memorable despite not having that much screen time. As a whole though, I would recommend that you fast forward through this film. Number 2, Al Pacino, Jack and Jill. Oh, brilliant! He's back again, this time not being content with just phoning in one terrible performance, but 2 this time in Jack and Jill, arguably the worst Sandler film ever made, and one that for many is just absolutely heinous because of its casting of Al Pacino. Why the acting legend chose to take this role is beyond me, but at least he offers a sense of fun to a role that is utter garbage. He seems to parade around knowing that he's just a walking commercial, not caring one jot at this point and probably just thinking about cashing that check as soon as possible. And because of this strange energy, he actually does provide one of the 3 laughs that this film has. And just for the record, the first laugh came from me when I couldn't believe that they were making this in the first place, and the third came from when people asked for a bloody sequel. Are you kidding me? Oh, Al, at least you're having fun because I'm bloody not watching this heap of trash. And number 1, Michael Gough, Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin is widely, and some would say rightfully, regarded as one of the worst comic book movie adaptations ever made. Its immediate predecessor, Batman Forever, wasn't all that hot either, but while the franchise was sliding into a slump, there was one man who was fighting against all that was dark and wrong. And it ain't bloody Batman, let me tell you, it's Alfred, played here by Michael Gough. The last vestige of the Burton continuity, Gough's Alfred provides a warmth, stability and dignity which was entirely missing elsewhere. I mean, how great is Gough as Alfred? So great that one of the franchise's most touching moments comes deep in the middle of Batman and Robin, as Alfred provides comfort, solace and guidance to his master Bruce. He says, "What is Batman if not an effort to master the chaos which sweeps our world?" That is an insight and depth worthy of the Nolan trilogy. That right there is beautiful.